Okay, for all of our Springs programs, this week is the front week. So our theme is fronts. Now, this is the first go around with our fronts in the session. So, probably a little more on the basic side for a lot of the kids. Some of those kids that you had through the first session, you can move them along a little quicker. But we want to focus on our front lineup skills, front dive, hollow and tuck, front flip, front 1.5, front double. For the vast majority of the kids, that's about as far as that's going to go. There are some more advanced Human Springs team divers who can start looking at front 2.5 tuck on 3 meter, and that's going to be something that we can maybe use water belts to introduce them to that skill and coordinate with their dryland classes if they're doing dryland classes to work on front 2.5s in the belts. But for the vast majority of kids, we're working on our front jump with a full approach. We're working on front lineup, front dive tuck, front flip, front 1.5. Let's emphasize good head position and knowing where they're supposed to look. I'm still seeing a lot of kids who are walking down the board for a front hurdle and not looking anywhere in specific. A lot of kids look 16 different places when they walk. A lot of the kids are looking straight out at the windows as they walk. They know that we want them to keep their head up. And so they're keeping their head up even when they're walking down the board. This is not really what we want. What we want is divers to be looking at the tip of the board as they walk down the board, and then once they land on the end of the board, to shift their vision up and out as they start their somersault or their dive. Okay, so the common error that I'm seeing on hurdles and front dives with full approach is the diver takes the last step, and as the last step comes down, they go, oh yeah, I got to keep my head up, and they look off into outer space, and they're not looking at the end of the board when they hurdle. Then they're like, oh, well, I kept my head up. So by the time they land on the end of the board, they feel like they've kept their head up a long time, which they have, just the wrong time. And then they look down as they take off, which is exactly what we don't want them to do. So teach divers to watch the tip of the board until they get to the tip of the board. Once they are leaving the board, that's when they shift their vision up and look at the far side of the pool as they go up and into the position. Once they're in the position, they shift their vision down to the entry point. Again, watch tip of the board until you're there. Once you're at the tip of the board, look forward as you go up into the position. Once you reach the position, shift your vision down to the entry point. That should help tremendously with helping kids to figure out where their head's supposed to be and when. And it solves a lot of interesting problems for a lot of kids. Okay? With front approach, during the front week, we can especially the second session, we can spend a lot more time on full approaches. Most of the kids should be graduating, hopefully, especially the kids that have been doing they were in the last session with us, should be graduating to beyond a one-step hurdle and into a full approach. Full approach for Montgomery Dive Club means 4 steps. We're not teaching 3 steps. Teaching 4 steps. Let's teach a 4-step hurdle across the board. That means that the diver starts to walk with the same foot that they hurdle with. Their hurdle knee is their first step. That also an important note here when we're talking about front jumps and just our hurdle in general is divers should be picking up the knee that they kick a soccer ball with. Their dominant leg should be the one that they pick up in the hurdle. So right-footed kids should hurdle with their right foot. There is scientific research to support the fact that this is correct. Now, if a kid is in the middle of their high school season, we probably should not turn their hurdle upside down and make them do 4 steps and start with the other knee. But as soon as high school season is over, we need to get those kids hurdling correctly. Again, dominant foot is the knee that comes up in the hurdle and 4-step hurdle. watching the tip of the board until they get to the tip of the board, then shifting their vision forward until they're in the position. That's when they look at the entry point. So you should be able to watch a front dive tuck with a full approach and watch the kids look in 3 different places. They set up, they're looking at the tip of the board. They're walking down the board looking at the tip of the board. They land on the tip of the board. That's the first time they shift their vision. They look out to the far edge of the pool or the lane ropes. They watch that spot as they go up into the position. Once they're in the tuck position, they'll shift their vision down to the entry point. And that's what they look at until they're underwater. So those are the 3 spots that they should be looking. If we can get everybody going that way, we'll be in great shape. Let's really emphasize our Fabulous 15, which is on another video, and make sure that kids are really getting out of every session with a better front dive tuck. We don't want to see at the end of our session, at the end of the session, we do not want to see a bunch of front dive straights being competed. That was the case at our last meet, and we're going to rectify that and make sure all the kids are learning front dive tucks so that they're set up for their inward dive tucks and their front flips later on in the session. Okay? Thanks.